Sue. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 13th business meeting of the Webster Board of Education. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we need a motion, please, to move out of executive session.
So moved.
Thanks, Linda. Second?
Second.
Whoever.
Maria, thank you. And before we begin, we'd just like to express a huge thank you to all the parents, teachers, and staff who participated in the numerous advisory groups and recent forum conferences that helped to generate all the feedback that will help construct the safe and secure reopening of our schools, with people having chosen the option that works best for their families. But we are so grateful for all the work that's gone into this, especially from the administration leading the way. So thank you from all of us. And with that, moving into regular business, I don't believe we have any alterations to the agenda. So our new business takes us right into the final reserve transfers, which Brian will walk us through.
Sure. Cindy, you want me to share my screen right now?
Sure.
All right. Oh, I was premature in sharing my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, excellent. So as required by education law, what we do before we do our tax rates is kind of give you final reserve actions before we set tax rates. So what I did was summarize as a refresher on the top of what we estimated in June, where we thought we might land for estimated transfers with limits not to exceed in some of our more popular reserve funds. So the first part of the memo is just a refresher of June of where we were going to be. So now then on the top of the second page is we've closed the books, haven't had our audit yet, that's next week. So this is though, pretty much 1920 has the ribbon and the bow on it. We're all prepped and ready for the audit. So of what we're actually going to transfer to the reserves. So first up is $250,000 into the tax certiorari reserve. And with the amount of claims that are coming in to the office right now, that's going to be money well spent this year. We're getting more challenges from retail businesses than we have in the past, which was not unexpected due to them being shut down for several months. So this is a way for them to kind of cut their costs. A transfer of $750,000 to the TRS sub-fund. Workers' compensation, and we've had conversations with our auditors during the prelim about where to put money. They recommend that's the new fund. So if you had some funds, put it into the TRS. We talked through some additional into workers' comp. They said not knowing what is going to happen with the start of school year, COVID related, you need to have some money set aside in case the state adjusts, changes something, adds some liability to us there. Furthermore, we added funds to our liability reserve as the next step. Why are we concerned there? We're concerned because we're expecting paperwork to hit Cindy's desk probably sometime in the next few weeks as a class action lawsuit against every school district in the nation, but also in New York State around equity access around IEPs and students with disabilities from when we were closed during the pandemic. Some of those student-related issues do not get covered under our general liability, so they kind of fall in the cracks sometimes, but just to prepare ourselves for that, we're bolstering the liability reserve. And then the last two transfers, the BOCES Capital Project Fund, that's just a continual of us funding our share of that project for Monroe 1 BOCES. And then the school lunch transfer is a smaller amount than we thought to get them above zero from the loss they sustained at the end of the year. So those are the transfers that we're going to make into our reserves as we complete the 1920 year. Any questions on that portion before we do the last two parts of this?
No.
Okay. And then to close out 1920, we were going to utilize a little over $2 million of our employee retirement contribution reserve. We did not need that, so we're returning it back. That's the second action for reserves. And then the final third action for reserves is now we're into the 2020-21 fiscal year. What reserves we're going to take money out and put that into our general fund to utilize for this fiscal year is the using the employee retirement contribution reserve again there. And then also we added, as part of the budget process, the unemployment reserve, thinking that we would have some issues there as well. So those two are coming out of the reserve into the 2020-21 school year. So those are the three actions on the reserves for tonight.
Anybody have any questions or feedback? We're all set with this. Okay. Can we have a motion?
I do. So Brian, you're taking money out for the 1920 for the employee contribution and just basically putting the same amount back in, right?
Correct. Auditors require us to have the board do that. Rather than just leave it sitting there, they want to see that the board saw that it went back in and came back out. So in essence, we didn't spend it in 1920, and we still have it there as a buffer to utilize for 2021.
So it's really an administrative thing that we have to do.
Correct.
It's just procedural. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Everyone okay with this? Can we have a motion then to accept the final reserve transfers as recommended by Brian?
So moved.
Thanks, Soph. Second?
I'll second.
Sue? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that makes sense.
And I believe motion carries. That was everyone? Okay. Thank you. And moving on to the tax presentation.
Okay. So next up is the tax warrant. I'm just going to run through everything. So as of, I believe, about 4:37 this afternoon, the county and I agree on everything. Had some issues, as I pointed out in an email, with changes to STAR for Penfield last minute and assessment, and then some Webster STAR properties got removed as well that we needed to update. And as a caveat, the state could come and make changes tomorrow if they wanted to as well, and we'd have to do some recalculations because they sometimes like to really press it up until the last week of August before we actually have to print tax bills. So it's not unheard of for last minute changes. I know we've had to do that before. So this is where we're at right now. I thought I'd break it down, the three parts, how I've gone through before, the three parts that make up our tax rates. First is our tax levy. You see that the amount actually gets reduced this evening that we're proposing by $74,617. That is what we call re-levies, or the technical term is Section 520s. That gets reduced overall for the levy because these are unpaid taxes for a multitude of reasons. So the county is re-levying that amount. So we're only re-levying that plus that to make what our proposed budget is. So that amount is a little bit higher, probably about $20,000 higher than previous years, but within, you know, the kind of scope of what we normally get, somewhere in that 45 to, this is a little on the high range. So that is our levy. That's the change you'll see when you look at the warrant. Our assessments, what's happened between 1920 and 2021. Overall assessment growth in the district is up 1.16%. You can see the differences between valuation between all four towns. You see some, Ontario had a large increase. Webster is pretty flat. Penfield was low in comparison to what they've done recently. And then the last column is what percent as far as a total assessment that each town makes up of the district. You see, you know, Webster's just, you know, a shade under 73, Penfield almost 27, and then Ontario and Walworth, you see, are very, very small pieces of the district. And I wanted to point that out because that makes Ontario and Walworth very susceptible to minimal changes. Whereas with Webster and Penfield, you change a few things, you might not see a difference or an impact, but because we have a large chunk of the district and then two really small ones, they're sometimes skew, and you'll see that happen in the rates this year because of that. So the third part of the formula is equalization rates. So you see this is, they've been trending downwards, but we've seen some extreme reductions this year. So Penfield was at a 90% equalization. Now they moved to 87, so a 3% drop. So that's in comparison to assessed to market value. So the state is in essence saying, Penfield, you are now 13% as a town below market value. Webster is now down to 74. Ontario went from 94 to 91. Walworth went from 92 to 86, so an 8% drop. So if you think about Walworth and the size of it and how it is a comparison to the district overall, and then to take an 8% equalization drop is going to be a tough one as far as tax rates go. So those are the three parts that work within the formula. So where are our rates in this middle column right here? As I'll highlight it for you of what happens. So Penfield is about a 2%. Webster is about 2.5%. So you think about it this way: for every percent, you know, that the equalization rate drops is a percent on the tax rate. And when you see it not balance out, it's mitigated by assessment growth. So Webster had some assessment growth, so it brought it down to 2.5. And then you see Ontario and Walworth. Walworth, with that 8% equalization drop, sees their tax rate increase much more out of that 2% range because of the 8% drop to Walworth. So those are the final rates. So as a comparison, and I put 2 previous years to show you what happens there. How did it compare to what we estimated during the budget? A couple things where the projections that I put off, where was I off? I thought the district would come in at about 1.29% is what was the 10-year average for the district. We were at 1.16%. Walworth and Penfield especially were much lower than their 10-year averages. So that, hurt where the budget projection was to what is actual happening. Webster's equalization rate actually came in 1% lower, so there's a 1% change. But, it was still pretty somewhat accurate from what the information was in April compared to right now with the actual rates. A common question that comes up: what happens if every town goes to 100%? So if we go to 100%, Webster taxpayers become the big winner. Their tax rate goes down $1.20. The other towns move up substantially. So what does that tell us? Every time Webster's equalization rate goes down, it subsidizes the other 3 towns to make their tax rates lower.
So was I under the impression that that Webster was going to do a revail, the town?
I think we're 1 year away. They
Okay.
were waiting for a database update, like a conversion to a new program to happen first before they could do that, rather than have to kind of have to deal with two birds at the same time. So they were going to
Yeah,
get
but do you think the COVID will change that?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you, Sue, the only thing COVID changed for that, Webster asked for a delay in finalizing the tax rolls, and they did that by 3 weeks. That was something that was granted, but I don't, see how the district-wide, how it could impact that.
Well, only because it costs money and everyone's going to be short of money.
Yeah, there is a cost to it.
Are we sharing that or no?
No, that would not be something we would typically get involved in.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So, yep. And then the other question that comes off of this is, well, why, since they're all at 100%, are they not all equal? We are unique. There's a couple of us in the county. Because we get sales tax, we have to allocate that to every town. First step is actually we split it between Monroe County and then Wayne County, and then split the sales tax between Webster and Penfield, the Monroe County share, and then split the Wayne share between Ontario and Walworth. So because we do that, it artificially puts a budget number into a mathematical calculation. So our budget number for sales tax is $7,350,000. We split that between Wayne and Monroe, and then we split it further. So it puts I won't say a fake number, but a budget number every time into this process. So you see it lines up a little bit, but all four towns will never be the same, even at 100% valuation, because we apportion sales tax. And then just a couple of things to point out, the star limits that are capped at 2%, you can see, basic star changed for Penfield and Webster. It went down considerably. So I just wanted to highlight that for you for your information. And then right now, the estimated average home impact, I was able to pull a real estate survey from one of the databases. The Webster average house in the last year has gone for 220. So that's a significant jump to show what would the impact be with the rates, on the year and on the month for the district. Questions on any of the rates or parts of the tax and what makes it up?
Anyone, please jump in if you have questions.
So, yep, I gave you the warrant too to show you the calculations and to show you how it gets split up amongst the towns. That gets all to the same points. I just think this is a much, a nice overview of all the components of the spreadsheet that I did share with you.
I think we're good. That shows the correlation between all the numbers and why things are the way they are. So thank you for that in-depth explanation. Do you want to move on to the rates and how those numbers have come to be?
So yeah, in essence, I just consolidated all those points on the agenda, Tammy.
Okay.
So,
So two were, okay.
the warrant is right here that I gave you. All I did was summarize the warrant and the memo into the slide deck to make it kind of for ease of viewing. So on slide 5 would be the rates we're adopting this evening.
So Brian, if there are cuts, right, the rates don't change. We have to just make up for it in various areas of the budget, correct?
Yep, because that's going to be through, if the governor says, you're losing $2 million. We're locked. There's nothing we can do on like the local side of raising additional funds to offset that.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Tough dealing with all the ambiguity and pulling this together. So very nice job.
Okay, with that then, can we have a motion, please, to accept tax rates as presented?
So moved.
By Mike, and a second.
Second.
Mike Stuff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so much, Brian, for all your efforts. We appreciate it. Moving on to the treasurer's report for June 2020.
All right, let me share that.
Share another screen.
Can you guys see that right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the one thing I wanted to point out, because it was kind of a scare that was going around that I think NISBA had sent out and some of the other listservs in March, that our state aid might be delayed in June. And I know it came up during the budget process, but I just want to confirm to you guys on the first page, you see there, we did get all of our state aid for the 1920 year. So we were made whole. And so I just wanted to point that out as far as the treasurer's report. And also, this will be the last time on June 30th that you will see the treasurer's report like this. For the July one, which we'll get to in September, you'll see a different report. Probably need a little bit more time to walk through that with you guys too. So a little something different after, I think, would have been close to 30, maybe almost 30 years of the same style of treasurer's report. So hopefully you find it a little bit more informative and a little bit more robust and worth, I guess, a little bit more informational with the numbers.
Okay, if there are no more questions, can we please have a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented?
So moved.
Linda, thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Maria, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Thank you. Motion carries. Oh, now I can see everybody. And finally, moving on to the revised school calendar. Couple of changes. Carm will lead us through.
Hey, Mr. Neenan, can you help me? Because I left my calendar in the office. So we have one change. Well, we have a change to our superintendent's conference day that was supposed to be in May. Brian, we got rid of our last superintendent's conference day, which was supposed to be a K-8 day, and
Yes.
we are going to move. We got rid of it, and we're going to make it a K-12 superintendent's day in late January, on January 29th.
I just shared it, Carm, so it's up there.
Yep. So, and Mr. Neenan, was that the only change that we had? Because we had done the whole September 10th first day for kids at the last board meeting, and the October 9th meeting we're not changing at the moment.
That's correct. We have that. I'm looking at the calendar too, and that calendar is what we have for now. I would say this is what we're going with it today. As we look forward and anything changes, we might have to make adjustments as it goes.
Yep. So that's really it. Just just consolidating superintendent's conference day in late January.
Yep.
Okay, thank you both. Any questions regarding the calendar?
Carm, do we have any guidance on how regents will be done for those who are doing remote learning?
Any guidance on what? I'm sorry, Mike.
On how regents exams will be taken by those students who are doing remote learning? Will they have to come into the school for those? Assuming we have regents
it would most
exams.
likely- yeah, well, that's a big assumption, number one. And number two, I would also assume that they would have to come in person, because I don't know if I really don't know of another way that New York State is ready. Doesn't mean they can't be, that they can't do it remotely if they have a secure site, but they still have to be proctored and all this stuff. So I'd imagine it will be in person.
Details to come, right?
Yep. So you guys need to vote. Yep. You guys need to vote on this.
Yep. So if there's no further comments, can we have a motion, please, to accept the revisions to the calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. In a second.
Second.
Maria, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. And then finally, we have the consent agenda. And many appointments and assignments are included there, along with minutes. But Colleen, if I could ask you first, how is the special ed in identifying kids in need, how is that process going to look different? Normally, we'd have the chance to have these conversations in person, and I just thought if you could speak to that for a little bit. I'm probably not the only one with that question.
So are you asking if a parent felt that they wanted to be considered by the Committee on Special Education to see if their student had a disability, that process?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yep. So they would follow the same processes as they have been, where they would either write a letter to our department or to their building principal, and we would follow up and have conversation, explain the process. They would get their paperwork. Really the only difference is going to be that the actual CSE meeting would be held up through Zoom or Google Meet. We have a safety and health protocol to do in-person evaluations, and we've actually been doing them for the last few weeks to try to catch up on our backlog.
Right.
So we're able to do that, as long as parents are comfortable bringing their child in to do that.
Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you very much. Barring any other conversation about the consent agenda, can we have a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
I think that was Saf. Second?
And a second, Linda.
Linda, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think that concludes our business for the evening. Our next meeting will be September 17th, so that's also a change to take us away from the first day of school. That will probably be enough for everybody as it is. And certainly hope everybody stays safe and healthy in the meantime, and thank you for all the good work that's going on, and I know that's appreciated by everyone. So can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Sue, second by Maria. She's smiling. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. See everybody next Wednesday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.